Hi, friends. I feel like I'm doing a little tarot myth busting lately. I did the thing about reading for yourself, I did the thing about third party readings. And I have another fairly controversial opinion that I'm going to throw it out into the world today. And it actually was prompted by a question I either saw, or a statement I either saw in the comments here, or that someone posted on Facebook. In one of the groups. I tend to lurk in several groups. I don't comment much, but I do lurk. But anyway, here's my thesis. Right, one card readings are not a good way for new tarot readers to learn. And the heads of 1,000 teachers, many of them my own, many of them people I admire, are gonna explode. I don't believe that one card readings are good for new readers, though, and here's why. All right, let me rephrase that. In my experience, one card readings have not benefited new readers. Let me say it that way, and that's why I believe what I believe. Here's why, though. Context, right? I talk about this a lot in videos and in my book. Context matters. And one of the contexts that we give a reading is a question, and I think that that's the single most important context. Well, that's a lie, because now that I'm saying that, I'm thinking that all context is important. I do think the question is prime, though. It's important. The rest of the context, though, are the other cards. And I think that having context makes reading easier. And I think that for a new reader, one of the things that they don't have most of the time is feedback. And feedback is how we learn, and feedback is how we grow. And this comes straight from adult learning education. Practice is key, but practice without feedback leaves us not knowing if we're getting anywhere. And as a reader, especially as a new reader, feedback is hard to get. When you read for others anyway, sometimes people will tell you that they liked or didn't like their reading, and I've had many people tell me that it connected, and I've had people over the years say that made no sense. It happens, right? But it's feedback. Now, I'm going to go down a road here. Feedback is not necessarily true. Someone can tell you that a reading made no sense, and there could be reasons why, and one of them is that you may have hit the nail on the head so specifically that they can't hear that. But that's a digression. So as a new reader, how do you get a little bit of feedback as you're doing your small draws, your daily draws, whatever? So what I'm going to suggest is not doing a one card draw for anything ever, and allowing yourself to create a reading that will give you feedback. So here's what I mean. Camellia Elias, I think in one of her blogs, and I don't remember off the top of my head, I'll try to find it, talks about finding evidence in the reading. And evidence to me is feedback. So when I do a 9-card reading, what I do is I think I learned this from Kelly in The Truth and Story at some point. I didn't always do it this way, but I'm not going to be able to fit 9 cards here, am I? My setup has really got to change. What I do when I do a 9-card reading is I look at the first card I put down, which is the middle card, and I look at the top left, and this creates the answer, in essence. So I look at these 2 cards in combination, and I say, okay, I've got the 10 of Cups, and I've got the Moon. So whatever the context is, the question, I answer it with these 2. And then I have the rest of the 9 cards in the spread. Oh, I didn't shuffle this from the last reading I did. Which you won't be able to see because I need a new space. What I do in this case is I say, okay, let's say this is a question about work. And this person wants to know, gosh, how do I get people to see me in the way that I want them to see me? Right? So whatever. That's just something I made up right now. So it's a question about work. So in this combo here, I'm going to look for the middle card in the top left, and I say, all right, so passion and enthusiasm is really going to be a key. Your dedication, and your idealism. I'm going to use the moon in this case as ideal, or instinct. That's even better. You got great instincts to see in the dark, and you're passionate. You know, that's how you demonstrate those things, right? So now what I do is I look at all the rows and the columns to validate that that's true, or to explore that that's true, you know? And again, like it takes a lot of work, right? A 9-card reading is really 6 3-card readings, and it's a lot of effort. But I would say, okay, so I've got this answer, right? So now I'm going to try to prove that with the rest of the cards, or prove that it's wrong. And if I prove that it's wrong, I go back to the drawing board and say, okay, that's not what this is. Now, it's a weird thing, right? Because how do you prove it? I can manipulate the meanings of the cards any way I want because I'm the reader. But what I'm doing for myself is trying to find in there evidence that that's the case, that supports what I've said, that enhances what I've said, or develops it. But I'm trying to make sure that I'm checking in that this just wasn't a wild guess. So you want to demonstrate your passion and enthusiasm and show them that you've got great instincts, even when things aren't clear. So I come here, now I look at this combo. The moon still sort of means what it means, you know, but I could say that you're able to cut through the dark, you know, and you can really, you know, even when it's dark, you can still make things grow, you know. So that kind of supports what I said. You got great instincts, you're enthusiastic enough that you'll even nurture stuff when you can't really see what's going on. You know, your passion and enthusiasm can survive the financial ups and downs that can trap other people. You know, and I'm enhancing, I'm looking for evidence that what I said is true. You know, and that's how I do a 9-card reading. And it's, when I say evidence, right, it sounds a little bit more scholastic than it really is. In essence, what I'm really saying is that, do the cards show me anything that proves me wrong, you know? And that's, in a weird way, what I'm looking for, is to see, is there anything here that's telling me that my initial impulse was wrong? If there is, then I need to reevaluate it. I'm going to shuffle this because this it's like I just did a reading with this deck, and I'm having a hard time forgetting what I said about the cards in that context. But you sort of look for it to show you whether what you said is right or wrong, to a degree, you know? I'm oversimplifying it for the case of this reading, for the case of this example, because I just sort of, it's not about 9-card readings, right? But so I come up with a question about someone who wants to ask someone to marry them. So I start a 9-card, and I come up with the 2 of Wands and Temperance. And so I get a real interesting polarity here between these two things here. These two things here, I got balance, passion, right? Balance, your passions are really balanced. There's duality, there's connection, there's pull towards, there's alchemy at work. So I would say, you know, yeah, great. That seems like it's time. You know what I mean? Good. But then the other cards can, you know, prove me wrong or not. You know, so I look at these three, and I've got the 3 of Swords, which very typically is like heartbreak. I've got the Queen of Swords, you know, so does this prove me wrong? Could, you know? Or it could say that this Temperance has actually healed past heartbreaks, you know, and made you more open. How do I know that? Well, I look at the other cards, you know, so then I have the 2 of coins and the Strength card. So I start to get more of a picture of, you know, what I'm looking is just to make sure that that this isn't just a fantasy, you know, that there's evidence in here that makes sense. And as you know, I wouldn't even read the 3 of Wands. I mean, the 3 of Swords. If you watch my channel, I wouldn't interpret the 3 of Swords as heartbreak. I would say it's expanded your horizons, it's expanded your mind, you know, and it's really matured you. And you're smarter than you were, and you're more capable than you were because of this relationship. Your life is more balanced, and you're stronger because of this. You know, so I say my answer to the question is, should I propose? My answer was yes, and now I'm going to go through and make sure that these cards tell me that's the case. That really is yes, and so far I would say, yeah, it seems good. You know, I might get a card that says, you got to be on the lookout for this, though. You know what I mean? And that would shade my answer. So this is just all by way of saying, right, that using more cards can give you more context. And so if you're a reader starting out, everything I just said made them completely and totally ridiculous and overwhelming and like, oh my God. But what I want to get at is like, we go to the question of, should I get married? Right? Should I propose? And we get the 10 of Swords. Again, in Rider-Waite-Smith systems, probably would be a no. But the 10 in the numerological system that it sort of serves primarily for me, there's like an excitement, a mental elevation there that might actually make me say yes, right? But so let's just go with Rider-Waite-Smith for the time being. So no, right? That's actually a pretty easy, answer. But why? And is that true? And do I know that that's the right answer? So what I would suggest is actually, if you're starting out, instead of doing a 1-card pull, do a 3-card pull and let the first card give you your answer, and let the second and third card tell you whether or not there's evidence to support it or to support the answer. So no, because, and here's my proof. So if I were going with Rider-Waite-Smith system, I would say, you know what, the relationship has probably been too taxing. It's really, really done a number on you. It's not a great time. It's just not the right time for this to happen. And now I look for proof in the Ace of Pentacles and the Moon. And so the Moon, and let me right away give you permission, if you're a new reader, to go with what's easy to start with, right? Like the Moon instantly helps me support this. Because the Moon is about not seeing things as they really are. So because of everything you've been through, you're actually not seeing things as they really are. And you're actually at the beginning of a journey you can't even see yet in your life. So, you know what I mean? So this card gives me the answer. This card provides some evidence. Let's try it again. Let's say that this is, and again, I do think questions are key. So should I quit my job and go join the circus? Right? So we shuffle, we pull a card, we get the King of Swords. Again, I would probably say no, right? Because the King of Swords is not the kind of person who throws away life, to make a wild decision. The King of Swords ain't playing, But again, I want to prove that. So I get the 7 of Cups and the Queen of Swords. So this connection right out of the gate, you're smarter than this. You're in a position in life where you probably can't because you're a leader. And you're being seduced with the 7 of Cups by all these things that are shiny and overwhelming, but that are a little tricky and a little creepy, and, things ain't there. So the answer is no. Why? And then this just proves it for me. Let's do another one. What will I get out of the party tonight that I don't want to go to? That's a favorite thing of mine. All right, so we get the 3 of Swords, the 3 of Wands. So again, I would say you're going to get something really good out of it. You're going to find people who are like you, have the same passions and enthusiasms you do, and you'll probably make a really great connection that sets you on a different path. And so now I pull 2 cards to prove that that's true, or prove that it's not true in theory. And I get the 8 of Pentacles and the 3 of Pentacles. 3 of Pentacles is a 3, so there's a connection there. 3 of Pentacles is about collaboration. Very, very supportive of this thing I said here. And it takes this and makes it practical. So you may even get a job out of this. And the 8 of Pentacles suggests, again, work, effort. So you might actually make a connection that will get you some work. So again, here's the yes, because, and this supports it, or, proves it wrong. And I think as a new reader, what you want is support. You want to know that you're getting it right. You know what I mean? Right in quotation marks. So you pull a card, and then you pull to give you your answer, and then you give yourself 2 more cards to prove that it's true. And in doing that, you start to gain self-confidence. You start to gain connection and context to the cards. And I think that can help. Now, I think it can help, I say, because it's hard to go back and unknow what I know, right? And I've learned, I did a lot of 1-card readings when I started out that just weren't very helpful, and I found it really frustrating. And I couldn't tell whether, especially when I was reading for myself, I couldn't tell whether they were right or wrong. And I was very lazy too, I have to say. I didn't really journal this stuff. But, you do want to prove or have feedback that you're getting it right, Is this date going to go well tonight? Probably. How do I know? Well, you're going to be in a really sort of mature emotional mood, and you're going to feel really powerful. These 2 things, probably the Queen of Swords and the Emperor, really seem to have a connection as well, blah, blah, blah. So I get my answer, but then I do some more research and I prove that it's true. And I actually rarely have had a situation where I proved myself wrong, but it happens. But it just gives me confidence, you know, that, okay, I'm not just relying on this one card, I'm also making myself work with some evidence. So it's a little bit like more research. Here's my thesis, you know, and if you think about writing a paper, the thesis is that decriminalizing prostitution, but criminalizing Johns will reduce recidivism in women, for example. I literally just pulled that out of my college experience, right? So when you write a thesis paper, you have to come up with a thesis. And I was taking a class, this is just a little anecdote for anyone who's curious. I was taking one of those early comp classes you take in undergrad where they make you write argument papers, and we were supposed to write something controversial. And I think I had chosen something like school prayer, and the teacher didn't think it was controversial enough. So I went and decriminalized prostitution, because the argument was that women don't become prostitutes by choice. And once they become a prostitute, this is so like off topic. Once they become a prostitute, they're more likely to get arrested again and again. So and that makes it harder for them to get jobs. So if you decriminalize prostitution, but you criminalize the Johns, the women who are oppressed aren't the ones going to jail. The Johns are. And it makes it easier for women to get out of that cycle. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. That's my lefty view on that. But that's not the point. The point is the thesis is decriminalizing prostitution, but criminalizing the Johns reduces recidivism for low-income women, right? But I can't just say that. I have to prove it with evidence. You know, I have to go out and find rates of recidivism. I have to go back and find information about what drives women to prostitution, about the oppressive nature of pimps, for example. Who knew I was going to start talking about this shit on this on this video? So try to separate yourself from the politics of it if you disagree with me. The point is that I can't just say decriminalizing prostitution reduces rates of recidivism. For anyone who's curious, that means repeat arrests, repeat jails for women of low income. Right? That I have to prove that that's true with evidence. So the thesis for my question is, yeah, it's going to be a great date. You're going to have a nice connection. This is the proof. This is the research I go out and do that says, yeah, you're emotionally mature. You've reached a certain level of ability to nurture, and you're strong enough not to be pushed away, or you're strong enough to have boundaries. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's going to be a great date. You know, is it going to be a great date? Yeah, it's going to be really hot because it's the sun. The Page of Wands is going to be sort of like connected to fire. So it's you're likely going to feel a little ill at ease, and you're not certain where it's going with the High Priestess. You know, she's, you know, but there's going to be maybe a spiritual connection and certainly an interest in like learning more, and it's going to be pretty hot. So again, this is my thesis statement, and this proves that it's true. Or not true, but again, it's rare. But what that does is it gives you confidence in the answer that you had, you know. This doesn't change the answer necessarily unless you get a combination that says, no, this isn't true, and then you come back and you reevaluate it. I'm trying to think of an example of that. Let's just pull two really negative cards out, or traditionally negative cards. Sorry. I probably should have used a more Rider-Waite-Smith based deck for this, but this just was out because I was using it. And it's one of the decks that is making up my my June. All right. So, yeah, it's going to be hot. You're going to have a really hot date. And then I get the 10 of Swords and the 3 of Swords. And then I'm like, oh, shit. Like, it's going to end badly and your heart's going to get broken. Now, is that a great date? No. So what do I come back and do? I come back and I look at the sun and say, well, it will be hot, but it'll probably burn out too fast. Or it's based purely on heat. There's no intellectual connection, and it may be a good date, but there ain't no potential for a relationship there. You know, so I recontextualize my answer. Maybe it's not different. Maybe the date's still going to be pretty hot, but it ain't going to go well after that. You know what I mean? And again, I wouldn't necessarily interpret those cards that way, but that's how they are frequently interpreted in Rider-Waite-Smith. So you are in essence doing a one-card draw because you're getting your answer from the first card. You're validating your answer with the next two, or however many you want. You could do another one. But I think that 3 is nice because it breaks the tie. You know what I mean? So you have a sense that, like, if your first card answers the question, your second card validates it, your third card validates it, you got validation. If the first card answers it, the second card validates it, and the third card doesn't, then you can check yourself. And that's really what this is about, is feedback. And I think most of the time you're probably going to get a validation because you were probably right the first time. But you feel more confident because you have that validation, you have that feedback. So in essence, it's like having a teacher there to say, yeah, it's a great answer, and here's why. And it also adds more color and context, which of course I'm a big fan of. So just to kind of, like, this video did not go in the in the direction I thought it was going to when I set out to do it. I didn't expect to talk about prostitution. But again, I mean, the purpose behind that, and the reason I chose that is because it's the one paper from college that I remember, because my teacher said to me, boy, you know, when I tell you to pull those stops out, you pull the stops out. And that's how it goes. But it taught me how to do what I'm talking about, which is that you make a thesis statement and you prove it. And that's what readings for me really do. And I think this is a great way when you're starting out to do that. Can the cards you pull validate the first card you pulled? And if they can, you can say, I'm right. And if they don't, then you come back and reevaluate. So they're feedback for this. And they also have the benefit of adding more shading and color to it. So that's my recommendation, is that if you are starting out, you eschew one-card pulls, put them aside. I never find them very helpful anyway. So that's just me, controversial opinion Ben. But boop, thesis, boop, research, proves the thesis, or you come back and reevaluate the thesis. So that's that. Hope this helped. Pardons for the weird political turn this took, but that's me, and I hope you're well.